Hey everybody, these tape tips were originally recorded for YouTube, so occasionally an episode may have a few moments that are better suited for watching rather than just listening. The link to the YouTube video is in the show notes, and if you're on Spotify, you can choose to watch the video right there. Thanks. Now, I think it's safe to say that pretty much every climber who reaches the advanced level, whatever that actually means, let's call it mid 513 or V8-ish, wants to continue improving. And the path to get stronger is fairly straightforward and well laid out. But the path to get better is a little murkier, particularly when we start talking about movement. But there's one tricky movement decision that I see advanced climbers, myself included, get literally stuck in over and over. In this video, we're going to look at some examples, diagnose why we end up stuck there, and learn how to avoid it. Let's go. Okay, this is easily the movement error I see most often made by high-level climbers. See if you can spot it in these examples. These are, by the way, real examples where I see people make this mistake often. I was falling victim to this one until my friend Roland Chen yelled at me in the middle of a session. Since then, I've done the move more often than not. And this one isn't necessarily a place where I usually fail. I'm actually pretty good at this style of move, but I see a lot of people get stuck here. And it's for exactly the same reason as the first example, even though the movement looks entirely different. Did you see it? Can you spot what's going wrong? It's all in the decision making. If we're putting this into the atomic elements of climbing movement framework, it actually requires a nearly equal mix of tension, rhythm, and commitment. But it sort of masquerades as largely a position problem. And I think that's where we tend to get stuck. Pun intended. Now, let me explain what's happening. And I bet you'll be able to recall similar moves that you've struggled with. Now, as I'm setting up for this move, I'm realizing that the position is going to be hard to control through the entire range required to make the move. I can make the reach to the next hold, but getting up high enough to actually use it, that's another story. If it were a little lower, I could likely exert enough control to grind through the move, but it's not a little lower. So I'm wavering between going in control or going a little more dynamic. And before I go, I don't really decide. So I load up as if I'm going to go statically, but then I actually decide to go a little dynamically. When I do that, I'm releasing tension at exactly the wrong spot. This is where I should be either maintaining my tension if I'm going static or tightening up if I'm going dynamic. But by starting the more dynamic move so late, I'm releasing that tension that I need right when I need it. And it makes catching the target hold much more difficult. If the target hold is big, then you might make this mistake over and over and never really realize it's a mistake because the move was ultimately successful. It just wasn't very efficient. It doesn't get highlighted until the end position requires that tension be held precisely at that moment. You fail and think, I must not have been in the right position. In this case, in this move, that means that I should get higher. My position needs to be higher into this undercling, which then makes the move even worse. I'm falling away as soon as I release because I'm convinced I need to go statically. And then I get to the point where I need to release my hand and my intuition takes over because I know I'm not going to make it statically, so it ends up stuck in the middle again. Not really going with control and not really going with momentum. It's a similar situation with this other move. And there's something about crosses that causes people to often end up in this situation, stuck halfway through, statically, and then realize they aren't going to quite make it and try to produce some momentum from a position that just isn't advantageous to produce momentum from. Now, both of these particular moves involve some sort of continued movement after making contact with the target hold, standing into the undercling, or rolling out of the cross. And I do think that complicates matters and makes the decision a little tougher, but I don't think that's the only type of move where this occurs. Instead, I think these moves will very often show up on the cusp of what you're strong or skilled enough for. You're almost strong enough to go statically, but not quite. You've almost mastered the powerful precision to go with momentum, but not quite. So the decision to go with one solution or the other is a bit of a toss-up. Not to mention, there's always the I just need to try harder or I just don't have the right beta solutions to contend with. And even when you intellectually make the decision to go one way or the other, you're still fighting the entire time because your body hasn't really decided. Now, when you have the ability to do it either way, when you're strong enough or skilled enough, then either decision's going to work. So it won't present as the same hesitation. You'll just know you can do it either way. That's where the commitment comes in here. It has to be an actual decision when it's on the cusp of your abilities. You have to override your natural instinct. In fact, when I was trying this move, what Roland yelled at me was, "Make an effing decision," because he could see that I was wavering, I was hesitating. Not commitment as in risk, but commitment to a specific solution. I wasn't committed. So how do we recognize that this is happening and that it just isn't a hard move that you have to try and try again to learn? Well, most of the time, you're going to either see or feel that indecision, that hesitation. The first time you see this, it makes sense. You're calibrating. It's a hard move. But when you see it multiple times in a row, particularly from an advanced climber who should at this point be trying different solutions, then you know the climber or yourself are stuck between two movement solutions. And if it's really obvious, it'll look like this. The up and down, unsure of what to do. They know they're in the right path, but just aren't sure how to cover that ground. And then usually it ends up in a final Hail Mary thrutch as you or they fall away from the wall. But a lot of advanced climbers move with enough confidence that it might be more hidden. The decision to go dynamic comes a little faster, so it doesn't look like hesitation. It doesn't come fast enough, but faster, and that looks more deliberate. What you'll see, though, is that it's usually preceded by the setup for a static or slower, more controlled move, and then a reach or a slap while falling away. It often sort of feels like, what happened? You look so in control, and then you were just off. But they weren't really in control. They really wanted to be in control, but they weren't. That's the problem. And like I mentioned before, you might latch the hold. The movement solution might be successful, but even when it is, it nearly always results in having to fight to keep it, checking an unwanted swing or a foot cut or falling away. So how do we work on this? Now, honestly, I don't think there's a way to avoid this entirely. At the cusp of what you're skilled enough to do, it's going to happen. And that zone is where many skill or strength issues are highlighted. But I don't think we should view that as a reason to go straight to the gym and train that specific thing. It's happening because it's hard and in a specific window near the limits of what you can do. That's how difficulty works. But we do get better at what we practice and spending time at those outer edges of what we're capable of, what we have the skill to do, those spaces where we haven't quite mastered it, where it feels just a little awkward or uncoordinated or uncomfortable is a good start. Moves or boulders that take 3 to 5 sessions or so to get done and done well are in the right zone, and that will put you into those situations more often. And the more often you have to make those decisions, the better you'll get at making the better decisions sooner and with more conviction, assuming that you go in with intention. So, what I think we have to do to counter this indecision, this stuck in the middle effect, is to treat it less like a movement skill and more like a tactical skill. It presents in your movement, but it starts on the ground. So first, we have to recognize that this is happening. You can feel the indecision if you're paying attention, or watch video, or have a partner watching as well. It's easy to spot and probably happens more often than you realize. Next, what you have to do is actually make the decision. Make it on the ground. Fully try both solutions a time or two. No switching in the middle. Override your intuition to do that so that you give your system a chance to have other data to work with. Because without that data, you just can't make a truly educated decision as to what solution is best. And keep this in mind. During performance, trying to send, the goal is to do the move by any means possible. But when practicing, when trying to get better, when this mistake crops up, the goal is to commit to the solution and reduce the hesitation as quickly as possible. And in both of these examples, I end up going more dynamic from the start, keeping a little faster rhythm. But that won't always be the answer. Sometimes you'll have to commit to just slowing it all down. Either way, we're smoothing it out. No more hesitation. Now, when we look for differences between advanced and elite climbers, according to our data that we've gathered for years, it isn't their finger or pull strength. It's not their endurance. But what's clear to see, if you're paying close attention, is that elite climbers cycle through possible solutions quicker and then ultimately come to the better decisions sooner. And they do that over and over. They practice it, and they've gotten good at it because they've practiced it. If you're interested in diving deeper into your own movement skills, I've created what I believe to be a game-changing movement assessment tool, the Atomic Elements of Climbing Movement. And the link to learn more about that is in the description. See you next time.